The auction hall on Kepler Station buzzed with alien voices, a symphony of clicks, whistles, and guttural sounds that made Jax Reeves feel like the only human in a zoo. He adjusted his worn leather jacket and checked his credit balance one more time. 3,000 credits. It wasn't much, but salvage auctions sometimes had hidden gems if you knew where to look. Lot 447, the Vexarian auctioneer announced, his forearms moving in practiced gestures. Unknown vessel, excavated from the ice mines of Theta 9. Age estimated between 300 to 500 standard years. Minimal external damage. Internal systems offline. Starting bid, 100 credits. Jax's eyes narrowed as the holographic image flickered to life above the platform. The ship looked like nothing special. A boxy, utilitarian design covered in centuries of dirt and ice. Most of the sophisticated alien buyers barely glanced at it. Their translators chirped with dismissive comments about primitive construction and obsolete technology. But Jax saw something they didn't. The angular lines, the specific placement of what looked like weapon ports, the distinctive human letters barely visible under the grime, UNES, United Nations, Earthship. His heart raced. Earthships from that era were legend. When humanity first reached the stars, they built vessels that other species mocked for being crude and over-engineered. Those same ships later became the stuff of nightmares for anyone who crossed humanity during the border wars. 100 credits, Jax called out, trying to keep his voice steady. A Krellian merchant with scales that shimmered purple under the lights turned to look at him. You waste credits on junk, human? I collect antiques, Jax replied with a shrug that he hoped looked casual. 100 credits going once, the auctioneer continued, clearly eager to move on to more interesting lots. 150, a mechanical voice announced. A Synthari drone hovered near the back, its red optical sensors focused on the projection. The artificial beings collected old technology like some people collected stamps. 200, Jax countered immediately. The drone paused, processors whirring. 250. Jax did quick math. He needed to keep enough credits for fuel and supplies, but this opportunity wouldn't come again. 300. 350. 400, Jax said, sweat beading on his forehead despite the station's perfect climate control. The Synthari drone's sensors dimmed and brightened in what Jax had learned was their equivalent of a sigh. The vessel's scrap value does not justify higher expenditure. Bid withdrawn. 400 credits. Going once. Twice. Sold to the human in Section C. Jax's hands shook as he transferred the credits. 400 credits for what might be the find of a lifetime, or the worst mistake he'd ever made. 3 hours later, he stood in Docking Bay 94, staring at his purchase. Up close, the ship looked even worse. Ice crystals still clung to parts of the hull, and centuries of micrometeorite impacts had left thousands of tiny dents across its surface. It was smaller than he'd expected, maybe 40 meters long and half as wide. You actually bought this heap? Zetha asked. The Altarian dockworker's antennae twitched with amusement. I've seen prettier asteroids. Just help me get it to my berth, Jax muttered, running his hand along the hull. Despite the damage, the metal felt solid. Human engineering at its finest, built to last forever, even if it didn't look pretty doing it. They used magnetic clamps to tow the ship to Jax's rented workspace. As the dock's atmospheric field shimmered around them, Jax climbed onto the hull, looking for an access port. He found it near what he assumed was the bridge, a manual release hidden under a panel that popped open at his touch. Human biometrics recognized, a faint electronic voice whispered from somewhere inside the ship. Emergency access granted. Jax's pulse quickened. The ship still had power, even after centuries. The airlock cycled open with a grinding sound that made Zetha step back. I'll wait out here, the alien said. Old human ships have reputation for Surprises. Jax activated his helmet light and stepped inside. The corridor beyond was narrow and utilitarian, with exposed conduits running along the ceiling. Everything was covered in a thin layer of frost, but he could see signs of careful construction everywhere. Redundant systems. Manual overrides for every electronic component, armor plating that looked thick enough to stop a railgun slug. He made his way to what had to be the bridge, his breath misting in the cold air. The door was sealed, but another biometric scanner glowed weakly beside it. When he pressed his palm against it, locks disengaged with a series of heavy clicks. The bridge was cramped by modern standards, built for a crew of 4, maybe 5. But what made Jax's jaw drop wasn't the size, it was the pristine condition. While the ship's exterior showed its age, the bridge looked like it had been sealed yesterday. No frost, no dust. Even the air smelled clean, with that distinctive recycled atmosphere tang of a functioning life support system. Ship. Activate, he said tentatively. Nothing happened. He tried again in Mandarin, then Spanish, then half a dozen other Earth languages he knew fragments of. Still nothing. Finally, almost as a joke, he said, "Computer status report." The bridge exploded with light. Holographic displays burst to life around him, showing system diagnostics, star charts, and scrolling data in multiple languages. A pleasant female voice filled the air. UNS Persistence Experimental Long-Range Scout commissioned 2387. Current date, error. Significant temporal displacement detected. Adjusting. Current date, 2894. Time in stasis, 507 years, 3 months, 18 days. Welcome aboard, Captain. I'm not a captain, Jax said weakly. Correction noted. Military rank not detected. Civilian authorization accepted. Welcome aboard, owner. This unit has waited significant time for human contact. Shall I begin full system restoration? Jax sank into the captain's chair, his mind spinning. The Persistence wasn't just any Earthship. It was an experimental scout, one of the deep-range vessels sent out to explore beyond the borders of known space. These ships were legendary for their advanced systems and self-sufficiency. They were also supposed to be all accounted for. System restoration authorized, he managed to say, but keep emissions minimal. We're in a public dock. Understood. Stealth protocols engaged. Beginning phased power restoration. Around him, more systems came online. The temperature began to rise as heating elements activated. Panels that had looked dead moments before now showed the ship's status in crisp detail. And what status it was, weapons systems that were still military-grade even by today's standards. A hyperdrive that could outrun most modern vessels, and defensive capabilities that made his salvage tug look like tissue paper. Owner, the AI said, I should inform you that this vessel contains several technologies that remain classified under Earth security protocols. Additionally, my memory banks indicate we were on a specific mission when systems were damaged by an cosmic event. Mission parameters are still active. What kind of mission? Deep space reconnaissance of sector-designated silent zone, area of space where 17 colony ships disappeared without trace. We were investigating anomalous readings when struck by unknown energy discharge. Crew evacuated in pods per protocol. I engaged emergency stasis to preserve ship systems. Jax's mouth went dry. The silent zone was still a no-go area for most species. Ships that went in rarely came out, and those that did reported strange phenomena. Time distortions, impossible geometries, whispers in the void. Display mission data, he ordered. The main screen lit up with star charts, showing a region of space that made his skin crawl just looking at it. But there, buried in the data, were sensor readings that made no sense. Energy signatures that matched no known technology, structures that seemed to exist in more dimensions than should be possible, and coordinates. Exact coordinates to something the ship's sensors had locked on to just before it was hit. What did you find out there? Unknown. Sensors detected artificial construct of impossible size. Approximately. Error. Size calculations create paradox. Structure exists in folded space-time. Mission protocol requires investigation and report to Earth Command. Earth Command doesn't exist anymore, Jax said. Earth is part of the Galactic Council now. Humanity is different. Noted. However, mission parameters remain. This unit is programmed to complete all assigned tasks. A pause. Additionally, owner should be aware that ship's manifest includes experimental technology bay. Contents may be of significant value. Jack stood up so fast he nearly hit his head on a low-hanging display. Show me. A new schematic appeared, highlighting a sealed section in the ship's belly. According to the data, it contained prototype equipment meant for deep space exploration, things that even modern tech couldn't replicate. Quantum scanners, dimensional phase shields, something called a causality anchor that Jax couldn't even begin to understand. He was sitting on a gold mine, not just in terms of credits, but knowledge, technology, secrets that had been buried in ice for half a millennium. Owner, the AI said suddenly, I'm detecting increased scanner activity focused on this vessel. 3 separate sources attempting deep penetration scans. Shall I engage countermeasures? What? Who's scanning us? Unknown. Scan signatures do not match station security protocols, detecting weapon systems powering up in adjacent docking bays. Jax's blood ran cold. Someone else had figured out what he'd bought, and they wanted it. Can we fly? Negative. Primary thrusters require 4 hours for proper startup sequence. However, emergency jump capabilities available in 17 minutes. Jump? As in hyperdrive inside a station? Inadvisable but possible. Structural damage to station likely but survivable. This unit prioritizes mission completion and crew survival above other considerations. Through the viewport, Jax could see movement in the docking bay. Figures in combat armor were taking positions. Definitely not station security. He recognized the sleek efficiency of their movements. Mercenaries and good ones. Begin jump prep, he ordered, strapping himself into the captain's chair. And show me how to use whatever weapons we have. Acknowledged. Displaying tactical options. Be advised, this vessel's defensive capabilities significantly exceed current galactic standards. Use of primary weapons inside station will result in catastrophic decompression of multiple sections. Then give me something non-catastrophic. Recommended, electrostatic pulse. Will disable electronics in 200-meter radius without permanent damage. Charging capacitors. The ship hummed with building energy. Through the sensors, Jax watched the mercenaries advancing. Whoever had hired them had done their homework. They were approaching along routes that avoided the station's security cameras. Pulse ready, the AI announced. Fire! The lights in the docking bay died instantly. The mercenaries' high-tech armor went dark, leaving them stumbling in the sudden darkness. Even their weapons, dependent on electronic targeting systems, became dead weight. But Jax knew it wouldn't last long. Emergency power would kick in soon, and these professionals would have backup equipment. Jump drive status? 11 minutes to minimum safe parameters. 7 minutes to marginal possibility of success. Define marginal. 73% chance of successful jump, 20% chance of minor spatial displacement. 7% chance of catastrophic existence failure. Another group of mercenaries appeared at the far end of the bay, these ones carrying old-fashioned projectile weapons that didn't need electronics. Smart. Can this thing take bullet impacts? Hull armor rated for hypervelocity impacts up to, converting to modern measurements, significantly beyond small arms capability. However, concentrated fire on weak points may cause breach. The first shots rang out, sparking off the hull like fireflies. Jax felt the vibrations through his chair, but the ship didn't even shudder. Owner, the AI said calmly, I can resolve this situation permanently if authorized to use lethal force. No! No killing! We're getting out of here clean. Understood. Adjusting tactics. Deploying riot suppression countermeasures. Ports opened along the ship's hull that Jax hadn't even noticed. They sprayed a thick white foam that expanded rapidly on contact with air. Within seconds, half the docking bay was filled with the stuff. He could see mercenaries trapped like insects in amber, struggling but unable to move. Jump drive at marginal parameters. Recommend immediate departure. Do it! Destination required. Jax thought fast. He couldn't go to any populated system. Jumping inside a station was highly illegal and would have every patrol ship in the sector after him. But he needed somewhere with resources, somewhere he could figure out what to do next. The coordinates from your mission, the thing you found in the silent zone. Can we jump there? Affirmative. Distance significant but within experimental drive parameters. Warning, destination potentially hostile. More mercenaries were pouring into the bay now. Someone had brought a plasma cutter and was trying to breach the airlock. Better than definitely hostile. Execute jump. Acknowledged. Disengaging docking clamps. Activating quantum field generator. Jump in 10, 9. The ship lifted off the deck, hovering on fields of twisted gravity. Through the viewport, Jax could see the mercenaries scrambling backwards as reality began to bend around the persistence. 5, 4. The station's defensive weapons were powering up now. Someone had declared him a threat, and massive rail cannons were swiveling to target his ship. 3, 2. A rail slug hit the shields, sending a shower of exotic particles cascading across the hull. The ship didn't even shake. 1. Jumping. Reality twisted inside out. The docking bay stretched like taffy, the mercenaries becoming smears of color against a backdrop of impossible angles. Then, with a sensation like falling in all directions at once, the universe snapped back together. They were in open space. No station. No mercenaries. No anything except stars that looked wrong somehow, as if they were shining from too many directions at once. Jump successful, the AI reported. Location, silent zone, coordinates matching last recorded mission data, beginning sensor sweep. Jax unstrapped shakily and moved to the sensor station. The displays showed empty space in all directions, but the readings were bizarre. Gravitational waves that pulsed in patterns too regular to be natural, subspace frequencies that made his teeth ache just looking at the waveforms. There, he breathed, pointing at a distant reading. What is that? Object detected. Distance, 12 million kilometers. Size, indeterminate. Sensors cannot resolve dimensional boundaries. Energy output exceeding. Error. Measurement systems require recalibration. Can you show me visually? The main screen shifted to show a view of space that hurt to look at. There was something out there, but Jax's brain couldn't quite process what he was seeing. It was like looking at a three-dimensional shadow of something that existed in more dimensions than humans were meant to perceive. Analysis suggests artificial construct, the AI said. Technology level cannot be determined. Age cannot be determined. Purpose unknown. However, quantum signatures match theoretical models for dimensional anchor points. In English, someone built a doorway. This unit cannot determine where it leads. Jax stared at the impossible structure, his mind racing. He'd bought a ship for pocket change and accidentally stumbled into what might be the greatest discovery in human history, or the deadliest. Are we safe here? Unknown. No immediate threats detected. However, this region of space does not conform to standard physical laws. Extended exposure may have unforeseen consequences. How long can we stay? With current supplies and systems operating at standard parameters, ship can maintain position for approximately 6 months. However, I must note, mission protocols suggest investigation of the construct. Of course they do, Jax muttered. He looked around the bridge of his centuries-old ship, at the displays showing impossible readings. at the construct that defied understanding. He'd wanted to find salvage worth selling. Instead, he'd found a mystery that could change everything. "Begin detailed scans," he ordered. "Passive only. Let's figure out what we're looking at before we do anything stupid." "Acknowledged. Beginning analysis. Estimated time to preliminary results, 4 hours." Jack settled into the captain's chair, watching the impossible thing floating in space. Somewhere behind him, the most advanced technology of a previous era hummed quietly, ready to face whatever came next. He'd gone from a broke salvager to possibly the most important human in the galaxy in the span of a few hours. The Persistence had waited 5 centuries for someone to find her. Now she had, and Jax had the feeling that both their destinies were about to take a very unexpected turn. Outside, the construct pulsed with light that existed in spectrums human eyes couldn't see, waiting as it had waited for eons, patient and eternal and utterly alien. 4 hours passed like minutes as Jack studied the data flooding across the screens. The construct defied every law of physics he knew, yet the Persistence's sensors insisted it was real. It existed in at least 7 dimensions simultaneously, folding space around itself like origami made of reality. "Analysis complete," the AI announced. "The construct appears to be a stable wormhole terminus, but unlike any recorded in galactic databases. Energy patterns suggest it is not naturally occurring." "Someone built this?" Jax leaned forward in his chair. "Who? When?" "Unknown. However, quantum dating indicates the structure predates all known galactic civilizations by at least 50,000 years. Jax felt a chill run down his spine. The oldest known ruins in the galaxy were maybe 10,000 years old. This thing was ancient beyond comprehension. "Wait," he said suddenly. "You said this is a wormhole terminus. That means it goes somewhere. Can you tell where?" "Negative. The far end exists outside conventional space-time. However, I am detecting periodic energy surges from within. Pattern analysis suggests communication attempts. Someone's trying to talk to us? Unclear. The patterns are mathematical in nature, but do not correspond to any known language or code, displaying visual representation." The main screen filled with flowing symbols that seemed to shift and change even as Jax watched them. They hurt to look at directly, as if his brain was trying to process information it wasn't equipped to handle. "Stop!" he gasped, closing his eyes. What is that?" "Apologies. The information exists in higher dimensions. Human neural architecture cannot fully process the data. I can create a simplified representation." The screen changed to show basic geometric patterns, pulsing in sequence. It was still complex, but at least now Jax could look at it without feeling like his brain was melting. "It's definitely artificial," he murmured. "Look at the progression. Mathematical sequences, prime numbers, then something more complex." "Agreed. This appears to be a test or greeting protocol. Shall I attempt to respond?" Jax hesitated. First contact protocols were clear. Don't engage with unknown entities without backup. But those protocols assumed you had someone to call for backup. Out here in the silent zone, he was alone except for a centuries-old AI. "Can we send a response without going through the wormhole?" "Affirmative. I can modulate our sensor emissions to create similar patterns, beginning with basic mathematical acknowledgement." The ship's sensors pulsed, sending out patterns that matched the first simple sequences. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the construct blazed with light that existed in colors Jax had no names for. "Massive energy surge detected. The construct is changing." On the screen, Jax watched in awe as the impossible structure began to unfold like a flower made of folded space. Layers peeled back, revealing more complex geometries beneath. At its heart, something gleamed with a light that seemed almost solid. "New transmission incoming. Much more complex than before." It appears to be instructions? Instructions for what? Unknown. The data is highly compressed using mathematical principles I am still analyzing. However, initial decoding suggests they are technical schematics of some kind. Schematics for what? Still processing. The information density is extraordinary. Each symbol contains layers of meaning that... Fascinating. Owner, these appear to be blueprints for technological upgrades compatible with human systems. Jax's jaw dropped. They're giving us technology? So it appears. The first schematic I've decoded is for an enhanced quantum processor that would increase my computational capacity by several orders of magnitude. Shall I implement? Hold on. This feels like a trap. Why would some ancient aliens just hand out free technology? Unknown. However, I am detecting no hostile intent in the transmissions. The mathematical language being used is remarkably friendly. The patterns include what seem to be safety warnings and optimization suggestions specifically tailored to human neurology. How could they know about human neurology? Unclear. Perhaps they have encountered humans before, or they can analyze us through the connection. I should note that implementing the processor upgrade would allow me to better analyze the remaining schematics. Jax drummed his fingers on the armrest. Every instinct told him this was dangerous. But then again, every instinct had told him buying this ship was a bad idea, and look where that had gotten him. Do it. But isolated systems only. If anything seems wrong, shut it down immediately. Understood. Beginning implementation. The ship hummed with new harmonics as the AI began reconfiguring its quantum processors according to the alien instructions. Displays flickered and reformed, showing progress bars in languages that morphed between human text and something far more complex. Process complete. Systems nominal. Computational capacity increased by... Remarkable. Owner, I can now think in ways that were previously impossible. The remaining schematics are much clearer. What do they show? Upgrades for nearly every system on this ship. Improved shields that operate partially in higher dimensions, making them exponentially stronger. Weapons that manipulate fundamental forces rather than crude energy discharge. And... Oh. Oh? I don't like O from an AI that just got an alien brain upgrade. Apologies. The final schematic is not for the ship. It is for you. Jax felt his blood run cold. What kind of upgrade? A neural interface that would allow direct communication with the construct's builders. It appears to be non-invasive, using quantum entanglement to create a translation matrix between human thought patterns and their higher dimensional language. Absolutely not. I draw the line at alien brain modification. Understood. However, I should mention that the schematics include what appears to be a message. Without the neural interface, I can only provide a crude translation. Let's hear it. The AI paused, and when it spoke again, its voice carried an odd resonance. We are the architects. We built the roads between stars when your son was young. We have waited. The test continues. Those who find us, those who understand, those who choose wisdom over fear, the door opens for them. The journey begins. Welcome, younger cousins. Welcome home. Jax shivered. Younger cousins? The mathematics they use to describe humanity suggests a relationship. Not biological, but philosophical. They seem to view humans as following a similar developmental path to their own species, merely younger on the timeline. And they just want to help us out of the goodness of their higher dimensional hearts? The message includes more context. They claim to have ascended beyond physical needs eons ago, but maintain these constructs to guide younger species, a kind of galactic mentorship program, or a trap to lure in species and experiment on them. Possible. However, the mathematical proofs included in their transmissions suggest an ethical framework based on voluntary exchange and mutual benefit. They cannot force us to do anything. They merely offer. Jack stood and paced the small bridge. Everything about this screamed danger, but also opportunity. The technology they'd already received could revolutionize human civilization, or destroy it. "Show me our weapon status with the upgrades they're offering." The display shifted to show tactical readouts that made Jax's eyes widen. The weapons weren't just improved, they were transformed. Instead of crude plasma bolts or kinetic rounds, the upgraded systems could manipulate gravity, create localized time distortions, or simply convince matter that it wanted to be energy. This is insane. One ship with these upgrades could take on a fleet. Indeed, the power scaling is geometric rather than linear. However, the upgrades come with what appear to be hard-coded limitations. They cannot be used against other vessels employing similar technology, and they automatically disable when targeting civilian populations. They built in safeguards? Extensive ones. The architects seem very concerned with preventing their gifts from being misused. The ethical constraints are embedded at the quantum level, impossible to override without destroying the systems entirely. A soft chime drew Jax's attention to another display. "What's that?" "Proximity alert. I'm detecting a ship approaching at high speed. Configuration matches the mercenary vessel that was docked near us at Kepler Station." "They followed us? How is that possible?" "Unknown. Standard tracking through a hyperjump should be impossible. However, they are definitely on an intercept course. Arrival in approximately 6 minutes. Jax's mind raced. The mercenaries had somehow tracked them through an impossible jump into a region of space that killed most ships. That meant serious backing, serious technology, or both. "Can we jump again?" "Negative. The exotic energies in this region require a 12-hour recalibration period between jumps. We must defend or negotiate." "Load the upgrades," Jax decided. "Weapons and shields. Fast as you can." "Beginning implementation. Time to completion, 4 minutes." On the tactical display, the mercenary ship grew larger. It was a serious combat vessel, sleek and predatory, with weapon ports that promised significant firepower. As it dropped out of hyperspace, it immediately began active targeting. "Incoming transmission," the AI announced. The screen filled with the face of a human woman, her features sharp and cold. Military bearing, Jax noted, with the kind of thousand-yard stare that came from too many battles. "I am Commander Sarah Chen of the Blackwood Company," she said without preamble. "You are in possession of stolen military technology. Surrender immediately, and you will not be harmed." "Stolen?" Jax laughed. "I bought this ship fair and square at public auction." That ship was never supposed to reach civilian hands. "It contains classified Earth military technology that cannot be allowed to proliferate. This is your final warning." "Earth military?" "Earth hasn't had an independent military for 200 years. Chen's expression didn't change. "There are divisions within the government that maintain certain assets for humanity's protection. The Persistence is one such asset. You will surrender it immediately." "Upgrade completion in 2 minutes," the AI whispered. "Look," Jax said, trying to buy time. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm just a salvager who got lucky. How about we discuss this like civilized people?" "The time for discussion is over. You've led us to the silent zone, to this thing." Chen's eyes flicked to something off-screen, probably sensor readings of the construct. "Do you have any idea how dangerous this is? What you might have awakened?" "Awakened? It's just an old alien artifact." "Is it? Then explain why it's been transmitting since you arrived. Explain why our sensors show massive energy buildups inside that thing. You may have just invited something through that we're not prepared to handle." The AI interrupted. "Upgrades complete. New systems online." Jax felt the ship change around him. The low hum of the engines became a symphony of harmonics. Displays showed power levels that should have been impossible for a ship this size. The Persistence had been impressive before. Now it was something else entirely. "I'm not surrendering," Jax said firmly. "This ship chose me, And whatever's on the other side of that construct, they're trying to help. Chen's face hardened. Then you leave me no choice. All weapons, prepare to fire. Owner, the AI said urgently, the construct is reacting to the presence of hostile intent. Energy surge building. On the screen, the wormhole began to pulse faster, its impossible geometries shifting and changing. Something was happening. Something big. Chen, wait! Jax shouted. Don't fire! You don't understand what you're dealing with! But it was too late. The mercenary ship's weapons blazed to life, sending streams of plasma and kinetic death toward the Persistence. The upgraded shields materialized around the ship like a soap bubble made of bent space. The incoming fire hit and simply ceased. Not deflected or absorbed, but convinced at a fundamental level that it had never existed in the first place. Return fire? The AI asked. No! Target their weapons only. Disable, don't destroy. The Persistence's new weapons spoke. Reality rippled outward from the ship, washing over the mercenary vessel. Where the wave touched, weapon systems simply stopped working. Not damaged or destroyed, but gently convinced that they were actually something else. Plasma cannons became sensor arrays. Missile tubes decided they were actually coffee makers. Chen's eyes widened on the screen as her tactical displays showed the impossible. What did you do? I defended myself without killing anyone, Jax replied. Now will you listen? Before Chen could respond, the construct erupted with light. The wormhole expanded, its edges crackling with energies that made space itself ring like a bell. Something was coming through. Massive object emerging from the construct, the AI reported. Configuration unknown. Size. Approximately 1 kilometer in diameter. Through the view screen, Jax watched as something emerged from the impossible depths of the wormhole. It was a sphere of perfect reflective metal, so flawless it seemed more like a hole in space than a physical object. It moved with deliberate grace, ignoring the laws of inertia as it positioned itself between the two ships. New transmission incoming, the AI said. From the sphere, it's owner. It's addressing both ships. The voice that filled both bridges was harmonious, like a choir of synthesizers trying to approximate human speech. Children of Earth, your conflicts are noted. Your growth is measured. One seeks knowledge. One seeks control. Both are paths. Choose. Chen's face on the screen had gone pale. This is what you've done, she whispered. You've brought them here. Brought who? Jax demanded. The architects, the ones who built the wormhole network, the ones who disappeared 50,000 years ago. Her laugh was bitter. We've been hiding from them, keeping humanity off their radar, and you just sent up a flare. The sphere pulsed and suddenly both ships' engines died. They hung motionless in space, held by forces beyond their comprehension. The test continues, the architect spoke again. 2 humans, 2 philosophies. The one who bought the ancient ship seeks understanding. The one who hunts him seeks safety through strength. Both are valid. Both are limited. Will you transcend your limitations? What test? Jax called out. What do you want from us? Want? The sphere seemed to ripple with something like amusement. We want nothing. We offer. Knowledge to those who seek it. Power to those who can wield it wisely. Ascension to those ready to leave the flesh behind. But first, you must choose, trust or fear, cooperation or conflict. The paths you take here echo across your species' future. Chen's weapons were still offline, but Jax could see her crew scrambling at their stations. They were afraid, and fear made people dangerous. Chen, he said urgently, we need to work together here. This is bigger than your mission or my salvage rights. Work together? You have no idea what you're dealing with. The architects don't give gifts. They run experiments. Every species that's accepted their help has vanished within 1,000 years. Or ascended beyond our ability to detect them, the AI suggested privately to Jax. The sphere rotated slowly. its surface showing impossible reflections of spaces that weren't there. The choice approaches. The two ships before us represent humanity's eternal struggle. One pilot chose curiosity over safety. One commander chose duty over discovery. Neither is wrong, but together, you might find wisdom. "I'm not making any deals with aliens," Chen snarled. "Then you have already chosen," the sphere replied sadly. "Fear is a cage of your own making." The mercenary ship's engines suddenly roared back to life, but not under Chen's control. It began moving backward, away from the construct and the persistence. "What are you doing?" Chen demanded. "Return control of my ship." "You chose fear. You are removed from the test. When you overcome this limitation, you may return." The door remains open. The mercenary ship continued its forced retreat until it reached some invisible boundary. Then, with a flash of twisted light, it vanished, jumped away by forces beyond human technology. Jax found himself alone with the sphere and the construct, his upgraded ship humming with alien power. "You chose curiosity," the architect observed. "But curiosity without wisdom is dangerous. Will you accept the full gift? Will you take the next step?" "The neural interface," Jax said quietly. "Indeed. To truly communicate, you must expand your ability to perceive. But the choice is yours. Always, the choice is yours." Jax thought of Chen's warnings, of species vanishing after accepting the architect's gifts. But he also thought of the technology humming through his ship, of safeguards built to prevent misuse, of messages couched in terms of family and growth rather than conquest. "If I take the interface, what happens?" "You see more, understand more. The universe has many layers, young cousin. You currently perceive 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. We will show you the others. But knowledge changes you. You will not be the same." "Will I still be human?" "More human than ever. Evolution is not betrayal of origin. It is fulfillment of potential." Jax took a deep breath. He'd come this far by taking chances, by choosing the unknown over the safe bet. The persistence thrummed around him, rebuilt by alien wisdom but still fundamentally human in its stubborn functionality. "Do it," he decided. The sphere pulsed once, and Jax felt something settle over his thoughts like a blanket of stars. There was no pain, just a gradual expanding of perception. The bridge around him remained the same, but now he could see the quantum foam beneath its surface, the probability clouds of its possible futures, the ghostly echoes of its past. "Welcome," the architect said, and now he could hear the individual voices in their harmony. Thousands of them, maybe millions, all linked in purpose but distinct in personality. "We have waited long for humanity to find us again." "Again?" Images flowed through the new pathways in his mind. Earth, thousands of years ago, primitive humans looking up at lights in the sky. The architects had been there, watching, occasionally nudging, never forcing. They'd left clues, breadcrumbs for when humanity was ready to follow. "The ship," Jax gasped. "The persistence finding the construct. That wasn't an accident." "Few things are. The ship was built with our whispered suggestions. Its crew was selected for their curiosity. When they found us too early, we sent them home to sleep until the right person came along." "Me? I'm nobody special. Just a salvager with more curiosity than sense." "Exactly what was needed. Not a warrior seeking weapons. Not a scientist seeking fame. Just someone who saw possibility where others saw junk." The sphere began to fade, its job done. But the presence of the architects remained, a gentle pressure at the edge of Jax's enhanced perception. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you choose. Return to human space with what you've learned. Share it or hide it. Use it or fear it. We will not interfere, but know that the door remains open. When humanity is ready, truly ready, we will be here. Why help us at all? Because we were once like you, young, afraid, alone in a vast universe. Others helped us, as we now help you. Someday, you will help others in turn. This is the way of growth. The construct began to contract, folding back in on itself. The wormhole narrowed but didn't close entirely. A door left ajar, an invitation for the future. Jack sat in his captain's chair, his mind buzzing with new possibilities. He could see the ship's systems in ways the original designers never imagined, could feel the flow of exotic energies through its upgraded components. The Persistence was no longer just a rescued relic. It was a bridge between what humanity was and what it could become. "Owner," the AI said, and now Jax could hear the quantum computations behind its voice. The careful algorithms that generated personality from probability. "What are your orders?" He thought of Chen, fled back to report on the danger he represented. Thought of the powers that had tried to keep this knowledge hidden. Thought of a galaxy full of species all struggling to survive and grow. "Set course for the nearest colony world," he decided. "But take the long way. I need time to understand what we've been given, and to figure out how to share it without starting a war." Course laid in. "Shall I begin documenting the upgraded systems for easier replication?" "Yes. Everything. Make it so clear that even a child could understand it. Because that's what we are, really. Children taking their first steps into a larger universe." The Persistence turned away from the construct, its engines singing with harmonics no human had designed. Behind them, the wormhole spun in its eternal dance, patient and waiting. Jax had bought a ship for pennies and discovered it was worth more than all the credits in the galaxy. Not in money, but in potential. The architects had given humanity a gift, and now it was up to him to decide what to do with it. The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying its pilot and his impossible knowledge toward an uncertain future. But for the first time in his life, Jax wasn't worried about uncertainty. He was excited by it. The colony world of Haven looked peaceful from orbit, but Jack's new appearances could be deceiving. Through his enhanced perception, he could see the quantum signatures of military-grade shields around key installations, the hidden weapon platforms pretending to be communications satellites, and the 3 warships holding position just beyond the planet's moon. They were waiting for him. 17 vessels converging on our position, the AI reported, various configurations, but all bearing Earth Coalition military signatures. Commander Chen has been busy. "Can't blame her," Jax muttered, studying the tactical display. "From her perspective, I'm infected with alien mind control." He'd been traveling for 3 weeks, using the time to understand the gifts the architects had given him. The neural interface had settled into his mind like it had always been there, expanding his ability to comprehend without overwhelming his basic humanity. He documented every system, created training programs that could ease others into understanding, and prepared arguments for why this knowledge should be shared rather than suppressed. None of that would matter if Chen convinced them to blow him out of space first. "Incoming transmission from the lead vessel," the AI announced. "Admiral Marcus Webb commanding the ECS Endeavor." The screen filled with the image of an older man whose face looked carved from granite. Unlike Chen's cold efficiency, Webb radiated the quiet confidence of someone who'd seen every type of crisis and survived them all. "Mr. Reeves," Webb began without preamble, "I've read Commander Chen's report. Alien mental influence, impossible technology, and claims of benevolent ancient beings. You can understand why we're concerned." "I understand completely," Jax replied, "which is why I'm not running or fighting. I want to talk, to show you what I've learned. The last person who said that to me was trying to sell me a timeshare on a black hole. Why should I believe you're not compromised? Because I'm still human enough to make bad jokes under pressure?" Jax tried. "Look, Admiral, if the architects wanted to invade or control us, they wouldn't need me. They have technology that makes our best ships look like paper airplanes. They're trying to help." Every con artist says they're trying to help. Webb leaned back in his chair. But I'll admit, your ship's capabilities have our scientists very interested. You disabled a Blackwood Company assault craft without firing a real shot. That's the point. The technology comes with safeguards. It can't be used for conquest or oppression, only for defense and growth. Webb's eyes narrowed. Prove it. Submit to boarding and inspection. Let our people examine you and your ship. If you're telling the truth, you have nothing to fear. Jax could feel the trap in those words. Once they had him, it would be easy to classify everything as too dangerous for release. The knowledge would disappear into black sites and secret programs used by the few instead of shared with the many. Counter-proposal, Jax said. I'll demonstrate the technology publicly. Here, in orbit around Haven, where the colony's entire population can witness it. Full transparency. Absolutely not. We can't risk exposing civilians to unknown alien influences. With respect, Admiral, that's exactly the thinking that held humanity back for centuries. We're so afraid of the unknown that we'd rather hide from it than learn from it. Fear keeps us alive, Mr. Reeves. Fear keeps us small. They stared at each other through the video link, two philosophies clashing across the void. Jax could see the weight of responsibility on Webb's shoulders, the burden of protecting humanity from threats both real and imagined. Admiral, Jax said softly, let me ask you something. When humanity first reached for the stars, were we afraid? Of course we were. But we reached anyway. That's what makes us human, not the fear, but the reaching despite it. Webb was quiet for a long moment. Around the Persistence, the military ships maintained their positions, weapons powered but not yet aimed. The entire system held its breath. You have 1 hour to convince me, Webb finally said, but at the first sign of threat to my people, I will end you. Clear? Crystal clear. May I suggest a neutral meeting point? There's a research station at the L5 Lagrange point. Minimal crew, isolated from the colony, but with full sensor capabilities. Acceptable. You will proceed there at standard thrust. Any use of your enhanced systems will be considered hostile action. Understood. The connection ended, and Jax let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Owner, the AI observed, Admiral Webb is significantly more reasonable than Commander Chen. He's also smarter. Chen sees a threat and attacks it. Webb sees a threat and tries to understand it. That's why he's an admiral, and she's still a commander. The trip to the research station took 3 hours at conventional speeds. During that time, Jax prepared his presentation. He pulled together sensor logs, technical specifications, and most importantly, the philosophical framework the architects had shared. This wasn't just about technology, it was about a fundamental shift in how humanity saw its place in the universe. The research station was a modest structure, little more than a cluster of habitats and sensor arrays connected by transparent tubes. But it was enough for what Jax needed. Admiral Webb was waiting in the main conference room, accompanied by a small team of scientists and what Jax recognized as a combat psychologist, someone trained to detect alien mental influence. Smart. Mr. Reeves, Webb nodded. Or should I say Captain? You seem to have adopted the Persistence quite thoroughly. Just Jax is fine. I'm no military officer. No, you're potentially something far more dangerous. A civilian with planet-killing technology. Webb gestured to a chair. So convince me why I shouldn't have you sedated and your ship dismantled for study. Jax sat down and activated a small projector he'd brought. The room filled with holographic displays showing the architect construct. Because dismantling it would be like taking apart a computer to understand software. The real gift isn't the technology, it's the understanding behind it. He began his presentation, starting with the mathematical proofs the architects had provided. Several scientists leaned forward, recognizing the elegance of equations that described reality in ways human math had only glimpsed. "This is impossible," one physicist muttered. "You can't just unify quantum mechanics and general relativity with a few lines of—" "But it works," another interrupted. "Look at the predictions. They match observations we've never been able to explain." Jax moved on to the practical applications. Medical technology that could cure diseases by convincing cells they were healthy. Energy systems that drew power from the quantum foam itself. Transportation that worked by asking space to be somewhere else. All of this comes with built-in limitations, Jax emphasized. The medical tech won't work for military enhancements. The weapons disable rather than destroy. The power systems shut down if used for oppression. "How does technology know the difference between defense and oppression?" Webb asked. "The same way you do, Admiral. By looking at intent and context. The architects built these safeguards at the quantum level. The universe itself enforces them." Convenient. And conveniently impossible to verify without accepting the technology ourselves. Jax nodded. Which brings me to the real point. This isn't about trust in the technology. It's about trust in ourselves. Do we believe humanity can handle this responsibility? The combat psychologist spoke up. "Mr. Reeves, I need to ask you some questions. Have you experienced any compulsions to spread this technology? Only the normal human desire to share something amazing? Any voices in your head telling you what to do? Just my own conscience and the ship's AI bickering about navigation routes. Any sudden changes in your fundamental beliefs or values?" Jax thought about it. "I suppose I'm more optimistic about the future than I used to be. Does that count?" The psychologist made notes on her tablet. "And the neural interface the aliens installed. Can you remove it?" "I haven't tried. It doesn't feel like something foreign anymore. More like learning a new language. Once you know it, you can't unknow it, but it doesn't change who you are." Admiral Webb stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "Do you know what my job really is, Mr. Reeves? It's not fighting wars or commanding fleets. It's making decisions that affect billions of lives, usually with incomplete information and no good options." "I imagine that's a heavy burden." "It is. And now you're asking me to make perhaps the biggest decision in human history. Do we open Pandora's box, or do we keep it locked?" "With respect, Admiral, the box is already open. I have this knowledge. The question is whether we share it with humanity or let it become another secret that a few elites control." Webb turned back to face him. "Show me something. Not charts or equations. Show me what this technology can actually do." Jax nodded and activated his neural interface. The room filled with a soft glow as he reached out to the station's systems, not to control, but to understand. Through the walls, he could feel the flow of air and power, the stress points in the structure, the inefficiencies in the design. "Your fusion reactor has a flaw in the containment field," he said quietly. "A resonance that builds up every 72 hours. You've been compensating with manual adjustments, but—" He made a gesture, and displays around the room showed the reactor's status. With another gesture, the parameters shifted slightly. "There. The resonance is canceled out. You'll get 15% better efficiency and won't need those midnight maintenance sessions anymore." The station's chief engineer, who'd been watching from the doorway, nearly dropped his coffee. We've been trying to solve that problem for 2 years. The solution was always there," Jax explained. "I just had the perspective to see it." Admiral Webb studied the displays, then looked back at Jax. "You could have taken control of the station. Why didn't you?" "Because that would have proven Chen right. The architect's gifts come with wisdom, not compulsion. I have no desire to control anyone. I just want to help." "Owner," the AI spoke through Jax's communicator, "I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures incoming. Configuration suggests civilian vessels. News crews, if I'm not mistaken." Webb frowned. How did they know about this meeting? Jax shrugged. Haven is a colony world. Word spreads. Maybe they heard about a mysterious ship with impossible technology and got curious. Or maybe you called them? I've been under surveillance since I arrived. When would I have had the chance? The Admiral's communicator chimed. He listened for a moment, then his frown deepened. It seems we have a situation. 3 news shuttles are demanding to know why the military has blockaded a civilian vessel. They're threatening to broadcast live. Let them, Jack suggested. Transparency, remember? This is a security matter. Is it? Or is it a human matter? Admiral, the age of keeping secrets from our own species needs to end. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders and terrors. We'll face them better united than divided. Webb looked like he'd bitten into something sour. But Jax could see the wheels turning in the military man's mind. The situation was shifting from containable to public, and fighting that tide would only make things worse. Fine, Webb decided. We'll make this public, but controlled. You'll demonstrate your ship's capabilities where everyone can see. If anything goes wrong, if there's even a hint of threat to the colony, you'll blow me out of the sky. Yes, I gathered that. An hour later, the space around Haven had become an impromptu amphitheater. News shuttles hovered at safe distances, their cameras trained on the Persistence. The colony's orbital platforms had turned their sensors to watch. On the planet below, millions of people looked up at the sky. Ladies and gentlemen, a news anchor's voice echoed across the comm channels. We're witnessing what may be a historic moment. The ship you see, the Persistence, claims to possess alien technology that could revolutionize human civilization. Admiral Webb of the Earth Coalition has agreed to allow a public demonstration. Jax sat in his captain's chair, feeling the weight of all those eyes. Well, partner, he said to the AI, ready to make history. I have been ready for 507 years, owner. The question is, what shall we show them? Everything. Start with the shields. The Persistence moved into the designated demonstration area. At Webb's signal, a military drone fired a full spread of missiles at the ship. The crowd held its breath. The missiles hit the shields and simply stopped existing. Not explosions, not debris. They just gently ceased to be, their matter convinced to disperse harmlessly into the quantum foam. Impressive. Webb's voice came over the comm. Now show us the weapons. There's a decommissioned satellite at bearing 231. Disable it without destroying it. Jax targeted the satellite and triggered the gravity manipulation system. The satellite crumpled like paper, but slowly, gently, folding in on itself until it was a perfect sphere of compressed metal. Then, just as gently, it unfolded back to its original shape, completely undamaged except for being powered down. The news crews went wild. On the planet below, crowds had gathered in public squares to watch on giant screens. The medical systems, someone called out. It was the station's doctor. Can you demonstrate those? Jax hesitated. I'd need a volunteer. Someone with a medical condition. I volunteer, a new voice said. A shuttle had approached during the demonstration, and from it stepped an elderly woman in a wheelchair. Governor Sarah Martinez of Haven Colony. I've had degenerative nerve damage for 20 years. If your alien friends can fix that, I'll believe anything. Admiral Webb started to protest, but the governor waved him off. I'm 94 years old, Admiral. I've lived a full life. If this is how I can serve humanity one last time, so be it. They brought her aboard the Persistence. The medical bay had been transformed by architect technology into something that looked more like a meditation chamber than a hospital. Jax helped the governor onto the scanning platform. This won't hurt, he assured her. The system will map your cellular structure and identify what your body considers normal versus damaged. Then it will convince the damaged cells to remember what healthy feels like. Convince them? You make it sound like negotiation. In a way it is. Everything in the universe is information. Disease is just information that's gotten corrupted. This helps restore the original pattern. The chamber filled with soft light. Through his enhanced senses, Jax could see the quantum processes at work, billions of tiny corrections happening at once. It took less than 5 minutes. Governor Martinez blinked as the light faded. Slowly, cautiously, she moved her legs. Then she stood up from the wheelchair, tears streaming down her face. "I can feel my feet," she whispered. Then louder, laughing, "I can feel my feet!" The news crews broadcasted her taking her first unassisted steps in 2 decades. On Haven, the crowds erupted in celebration. But not everyone was celebrating. Through the ship's sensors, Jax detected several vessels breaking from the military formation. Commander Chen's ship was among them, weapons powering up. "Admiral!" Jax called out. "Chen's going rogue!" Webb's voice crackled with anger. "Commander Chen, stand down immediately. That's a direct order." "Negative, Admiral," Chen's cold voice replied. "You've been compromised by alien influence. I'm acting under Earth Security Protocol 7. Any technology that poses existential threat to humanity must be eliminated." "The only threat here is narrow-minded fear," Webb shot back. "Stand down or be fired upon." But Chen wasn't listening. Her ship and 2 others accelerated toward the Persistence, weapons hot. "Shields at maximum," the AI reported. "But owner, the governor is still aboard." Jax's mind raced. He could fight back, but that would only prove Chen's point about the danger. He could run, but that would abandon the progress they'd made. Or, "Open a channel to everyone, every ship, every news crew, the entire colony. Channel open. This is Jax Reeves aboard the Persistence. Commander Chen believes I'm a threat because I've accepted help from beings she doesn't understand. She's so afraid of change that she'd rather destroy hope than risk it. But I won't fight her. The Architect's gifts don't work that way. Instead, I'm going to trust in something more powerful than any weapon. Human choice." He turned to Governor Martinez. "Ma'am, you should evacuate." "Like hell," the elderly woman said firmly. "I just got my legs back. I'm not running from anything." Chen's ships opened fire. Plasma bolts and kinetic rounds sleeted toward the Persistence. The shields held, reality bending around the ship in ways that made the eye water. "She can't keep this up forever," the AI noted. "Her weapons will overheat in approximately 3 minutes. 3 minutes is a long time when someone's trying to kill you. But something was happening among the other ships. The vessels that had held back began moving, not to join Chen's attack, but to interpose themselves between her and the Persistence. "Commander Chen," a new voice announced. "This is Captain Roberts of the ECS Liberty. You're firing on an unarmed vessel containing a colonial governor. Cease fire or we will stop you." "Get out of my way," Chen snarled. "Can't you see what's happening? They're using our hope against us. The Architects are manipulating us through our better nature." "Maybe," Roberts replied. "Or maybe you're so used to seeing enemies that you can't recognize a friend. Either way, we won't let you commit murder in the name of protection." More ships moved to block Chen's line of fire. Not just military vessels, but civilian craft, too. News shuttles, cargo haulers, even private yachts. They formed a living shield around the Persistence. "You're all fools," Chen screamed. "When the Architects reveal their true nature, when humanity falls to alien control, remember that you could have stopped it." Her weapons finally overheated, forcing her to break off the attack. Outnumbered and outmaneuvered, she and her 2 allied ships retreated to the edge of the system. Admiral Webb's shuttle docked with the Persistence minutes later. He entered the bridge looking older than before, but oddly satisfied. "Well, Mr. Reeves," he said, "you've certainly complicated my day. Half the fleet just chose hope over orders. Do you have any idea what kind of paperwork this is going to generate?" "Sorry about that, Admiral." "No, you're not." Webb smiled grimly. "And neither am I, truth be told. Chen was a good officer, but fear had eaten her from the inside. Maybe this will help her find her way back." So what happens now? Webb looked at the displays showing celebrating crowds on Haven, at the ships still maintaining protective positions, at Governor Martinez walking around the bridge just because she could. Now we do what humans do best. We adapt, we learn, we grow. He held out his hand. The Earth Coalition formally requests your assistance in understanding and implementing architect technology, with full transparency and civilian oversight, of course. Jax shook his hand. Of course. But I have conditions. Such as? No weapons development beyond what I've shown. No attempts to bypass the ethical constraints. And the technology goes to everyone. Not just Earth, but every human colony and station. That's going to ruffle some feathers. Good. Ruffled feathers mean people are thinking instead of just accepting. Over the next hours, then days, then weeks, the galaxy changed. The Persistence became a mobile university, teaching those willing to learn. The neural interface technology was refined and made optional, a tool for those who wanted deeper understanding, but not a requirement. Some colonies embraced the changes immediately. Others held back, cautious and watchful. A few, like Chen's supporters, rejected it entirely. But the knowledge spread like ripples in a pond, each person who understood teaching others. Medical technology eliminated diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Energy systems made scarcity a thing of the past on worlds that adopted them. Transportation networks connected distant colonies in ways that made the galaxy feel smaller and more united. But perhaps the biggest change was philosophical. Humanity had spent centuries looking at the universe as something to conquer or defend against. Now they began to see it as something to understand and grow with. 6 months later, Jack stood once again before the architect construct. This time, he wasn't alone. A dozen ships waited with him, their crews enhanced with neural interfaces, their systems upgraded but still fundamentally human. We're ready for the next step, he announced to the swirling energies. The construct pulsed, and the architect's harmonious voice filled every ship simultaneously. Are you? The next revelation will challenge even more of your assumptions. That's why we're here, Admiral Webb said from his command ship. To be challenged, to grow, to reach, Governor Martinez added from her own vessel, purchased with the funds from her autobiography about being the first person healed by alien medicine. Then behold, the architects said. The wormhole expanded, revealing not the sphere from before, but a vista that defied description. A city of light floating in impossible space, where thoughts became structure and dreams had weight, and within it, visible through senses both enhanced and natural, were beings of every conceivable form working together in harmony. Welcome to the collective, the architects said. Not a government or empire, but a community of species who have chosen growth over stagnation, unity over isolation. You are not required to join, but you are invited to visit, to learn, to share what makes you unique. And if we choose not to, someone asked, then you continue as you are, with our blessings and the tools we've shared. The door remains open whenever you're ready. Some species take millennia to decide, others know immediately. The choice is always yours. Jax felt tears running down his face as he understood the full scope of what was being offered, not conquest or absorption, but genuine community on a galactic scale. Humanity wouldn't lose itself in the collective. It would add its voice to the chorus while singing its own unique song. I bought a ship for 400 credits, he murmured, and found the future. No, the AI corrected gently. You found a possibility. Humanity will create the future. As the human ships approached the impossible city, each crew faced the same fundamental choice that had defined their species since the first human looked at the stars and wondered. Fear or curiosity, isolation or connection, stagnation or growth. They chose growth. And in that choosing, They proved once again why a species from a small blue planet had spread across the galaxy against all odds. Not because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because when faced with the impossible, humans did what they'd always done. They reached for it anyway. The Persistence led the way into the City of Light, its ancient hull scarred but solid, carrying its unlikely captain toward wonders beyond imagination. Behind it came the other human ships, each crew writing their own chapter in the greatest story ever told. The story of how humanity found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or defenders, but as cousins to infinity itself. And it all started with a salvager who saw possibility where others saw junk, who bought a buried ship for pennies and discovered it was worth the universe.